To me, these were always my favourite moments growing up, and still are to this day. The anticipation I would get watching Ghost Train over and over again with that chilling opening sequence and the haunting score, to contemplating what the takeaway was from Duncan Gets Spooked. This is when I think Thomas was at its best, when the show's creators played with tone, and to me, it's when the series felt the most grown up. So, seeing as we're at that time of year once again, I thought I would take a deep dive into the world of spooky Thomas episodes and share my thoughts with you all. Now remember, this is just a Cheeky Engine's opinion, and if you don't agree, then that's fine. Heck, some of these episodes will be all new to me, as past Season 5 and the Magic Railroad, I've never watched them before. So join me as we take a look at the spooky world of Thomas and Friends. So to start things off, we're going to start back to where it all began in 1986, and that is Ghost Train. This is a story like many others, started in the Railway series before being adapted to screen, and boy oh boy did the showrunners have fun with this one. For those of you that need a recap, in short, Percy tells Thomas and Toby a ghost story, one that his driver had seen the night before. Thomas, not believing him, leaves only for then Percy to be told by his driver it was a joke and that he saw it all on TV. Later, Percy is returning from the harbour when he runs into a lime car on the track, getting completely covered in the stuff. Percy then runs into Toby before being told he looks like a ghost, and well, you can see where things go from there. Toby and Percy scheme to play a trick on Thomas from not believing him earlier by saying Percy's had an accident. There's the whole scene in the sheds, Toby's amazing acting skills, and then Thomas runs off. The episode ends with Thomas being still skittish the next day, even running off when he hears Percy's whistle. It's a fun story. But it's not the story that ever made the episode for me, it's the visuals. From the very beginning of the episode you can tell this one is tonally very different. It's much more darker than other episodes. Even in the daytime, the set is flooded with smoke, giving it that dark, atmospheric presence. Not being able to see the set very clearly gives a haunting vibe straight away. Even the shot with Percy returning from the harbour, all the sets are dark, smoky, and surrounded by what looks like a haunted set. The full moon, the leafless trees, the old windmill, hell, even the route Percy takes looks creepy, with it all being part of the island we'd never seen before up until that point. It gives a sense of mystery. I remember watching this as a kid and thinking to myself, where is he? I don't recognise this. What's the story of those tracks? The windmill, the mysterious signal box in the middle of nowhere. It's because of all these things that the episode really sticks in everyone's minds. I mean, the opening sequence alone, the viaduct being that dark, shadows everywhere, and then we're told that one of these characters can actually die. Of course, it's later to be told that it's made up, but it gives you that sense of darkness. And the score, can we please talk about the score for a second? Mike and Junior knocked it out the park with this score. That gritty Phantom of the Opera-like tone really sets it off, and then the pace as it builds up, giving you that sense of dread as if something is really getting closer towards you. Damn, what can I say, this one really was a good episode. Something we realistically wouldn't see again in the show, but what a great start to spooky Thomas episodes this was. Now we move on to the second episode on this list, and it is of course Haunted Henry. As we will discover as we go through some of these episodes, Season 5 had a lot of them. Straight away the moment the episode starts, the tone is set. The shots of the leafless trees, the full moon in the background, the owl, and the mist slowly rolling in across the shot. This episode I feel leans into more the side of superstitions, with the legend being told by Edward to Henry. Whilst Henry is on the old line, you can tell the line doesn't really look very well maintained. Suddenly the mist comes in as Edward predicted, and almost completely covers Henry's view and the view of the audience. The music once again is on point with this episode as the synth slowly rises and then gently lowering, with perfectly timed sound effects coming in to add to the suspense. The suspense seems to grow even more when the headlamp is spotted, with the driver advising the colour indicates caution. The suspense really peaks with the whole scene when the sign is spotted, the signal is red, and the coat is hanging from the tree. The synth gets even more heavy in tone and the notes are lowered until the light is spotted at the old station, adding even more mystery to the whole suspense. Who is it? What is it? What are they doing out here in the middle of nowhere? And why the hell did they hang their coat in the tree? It surely must be some sort of supernatural presence, we are led to believe, and we then find ourselves later being in the same position with the owl, the mist and the lamp, but the trucks seeing the crossing closed by itself. Now they're spooked. Of course, it is later discovered that it's just Old Bailey and the mystery is solved. Now what I think the showrunners execute perfectly in this episode is pacing. It's almost as if the episode is done in two halves. The whole episode there is this sense of something is building up. Things are getting more strange, something is about to happen. The suspense is truly brilliant. Piece by piece, with the fog rolling in, with the haunted looking trees, then the lamp. We then come across the sign, and it stops. We then get to part 2, and piece by piece it builds up in this act as anticipation is added with the closure of the crossing, the trucks getting spooked out, and the finale in the form of a mysterious figure standing on the platform. Is it a ghost? Are their intentions malevolent? What do they want? I find myself asking all these questions before we even get the answer that it is just good old Bailey. This for me is top tier spooky episode, and although not quite as dark and haunting in tone as Ghost Train was, I still say this episode still takes a lot from Ghost Train, but lightens it up for its target audience. Haunted Henry? Take a bow. Now this one might be debatable, I know, but for me this one absolutely deserves to be here, and I'll tell you for why. So the recap in short, Stepney is sent to the quarry to help Mavis and Toby. After impressing the yard manager, he agrees to take a midnight special to a work site, and well, we can see where things are about to go from here. After the delivery, he then sets out from home when suddenly the fog rolls in. God damn it, what is it always with this fog? Suddenly the signal was green, then they carry on only to take the wrong turning. Finally, they end up somewhere very familiar in the form of the scrapyard. The crew leave for help when suddenly these two menacing diesels appear, apparently knowing Stepney. He is then pushed into the smelters under a huge crane. It is only at the last minute before the crane grabs him that he is saved by the Fat Controller. What can I say about this episode? The pacing is handled perfectly, just like most of Season 5, with it starting off in a happy place until progressively growing into a more nightmarish surroundings as any good horror theme should. One minute our main character is in a safe place with everything going perfectly until, holy crap, we're teetering on the brink of death. The same elements are here as most of the episodes in Season 5 have. The old line hasn't been touched in a long time, the haunted leafless trees, the set covered in mist, its perfect tone setting. But the highlight for me in this episode is the twins. Harry and Bert's appearance in this is quite messed up really. They appear out of nowhere, and seemingly it's hinted that they have been stalking the little terrier for quite a while, and with no remorse at all for the fact he is no longer for scrapping, they decide to try and murder him anyways. Now to me that's quite chilling and almost gives me Michael Myers vibes. There's really no motive as to why they want to kill Stepney, they just do regardless that he's restored and belongs to the Fat Controller. To me, it's kind of messed up, man. Now this one I can see being of a somewhat controversial inclusion on this list, but I think it belongs here for good reason. To sum up the plot, the Fat Controller has Toby take him and his family to the seaside. The children indicate that they have seen a castle on the island. Next thing you know, they travel to the wild parts of the island, almost completely uninhabited. They come across an isolated signal box who advises to carry on down the line until they discover both the castle and the mine. Toby believes the mine is haunted, and when his turn comes around to stay on guard, he is rather anxious. Eventually it's discovered a little narrow engine called Bertram is the ghost, and the episode ends with the mine getting reopened to visitors. Now for me this one always stood out for a number of reasons compared to the others. It's a tale of two halves. The first half starts out as almost a fairy tale like setting, with the time at the beach and then setting off on an adventure and exploring places unknown. It then slowly grows a little more unsettling, with the lonely signal box out here so isolated. Why is it still manned? Where did the signal come from? We then venture further down the line and we discover that it's all overgrown and in a state of abandonment. It's then as the discovery of the mine that things turn darker. Rusted engines and rolling stock line the sides of the tracks. These old engines lost long ago, left to rot completely forgotten. When night time hits, the mine takes on an even more sinister side with fog rolling in, again with the fog. painting the setting in a very eerie new way, with shadows completely everywhere. One thing that amazes me about this episode is just some fog and lighting. They've managed to transform the set from mysterious to haunting. The noise as it transitions from day to night is a really nice touch, almost ghostly. The subtle sound effects added in is a very nice touch, with the theme from Haunted Henry also playing here. Toby gets a little more and more tense with the puffing sounds sending him over the edge. Of course, it's just Bertram and the mystery is solved, but for me the suspense, the mystery of the place, the way the atmosphere changes so quickly, tone wise, this one for me is easily one of the best model series moments and a must watch for any Spooky Thomas fan. Now this one is one that I would describe as peak when it comes to playing with tone in Thomas episodes. Spooky visuals are always memorable, hence why we are talking about these episodes today. But what makes this episode peak when it comes to this category is what the audience is not told. Now going back to Ghost Train, we are later told that the Ghost Train was a story by Percy's driver. Duncan Gets Spooked stands out due to the lack of an explanation here. The sequence of Rusty telling Duncan a story about an engine crossing the bridge one misty moonlit night when it comes out of nowhere, tumbling straight off the tracks and into the dark ravine below, only to sink into the murky water, never to be seen again. The legend states the ghost of the little engine still haunts the bridge to this day. Now what makes this episode special to many people is the visuals. The fact that we see the engine's demise on screen for ourselves and the lack of an explanation. We are not told if this is real or did Rusty make it up, and later on when Duncan sees the fireflies form the shape of an engine, it's left to the viewer's interpretation as to whether it's Duncan's imagination or that really did happen. This is an amazing use of tone here, the big question mark left hanging there. Was it real? Was it made up? Was it in Duncan's head? Nothing is outright said here. Sure, there are other Ghost Train episodes and other episodes that play with spooky elements, but the pure mystery of it being left to the audience to interpret, that's why this episode for me is peak. Boy oh boy, here we go. My first dive into season 6 episodes and we're going in with Scaredy Engines. Now what can I say? I didn't hate it. So initially it's Halloween on the island of Sodor and Edward has gathered everyone to tell a story of a ghost engine that roams the scrapyard. This then freaks out Percy, who is then conveniently told he needs to go to the scrapyards later on. Thomas, being a little dick, decides to tease Percy about being scared, only to carry it on when they arrive at the smelter's yard. Duck then decides he will get Thomas back and volunteers Thomas to stay behind. Thomas gets freaked out, runs into a steam whistle and then runs off. The episode ends with Percy checking up on Thomas and they watch the fireworks together. Okay, practical effects wise, I was pretty impressed. The use of the chains of the whistle and the smelters, the night shots are pretty impressive looking, the mist all around, and overall visually it's not too far from what you would expect to see in season 5. But there are some very jarring moments. Now the warping effect in terms of the stuff hanging in the air, what the hell even was that? It's a very strange decision from the showrunners there, but otherwise visually it's pretty good. Story-wise, I think it's where we can see a change in direction of the show. Where season 1 and 5 played with tone when it came to spooky episodes perfectly, this one seems too much of a generic story. Everyone tells a spooky story, Thomas is a dick, Percy is a coward, Thomas is scared, they kiss and make up. It's like the plot line and the story is mapped out before you even know what's going to happen. It's a shame, honestly, and there are elements I like and elements I don't like with this, and I think that's okay. I'm not the target audience for this episode, but as a summary, visuals wise, this could give season 5 a run for its money in place, which is huge praise, but tone and story wise, this episode to me is just worlds apart. So, sticking with season 6, we have Percy and the Haunted Mine. Now to recap, this one is about the Fat Controller sending Percy to collect some decorations at Maythwaite Station. Now whilst en route there, Percy sees the old mine sink into the ground. Percy then freaks out and runs past it fast as he can when the signal turns green. Donald and Douglas then freak Percy out with the gnome story, after which, surprise surprise, the Fat Controller sends Percy to the Haunted Mine again to collect some trucks for the competition. Because, of course, where else would you store decorations for your friggin' station? They then witness another building collapsing into the ground. He rams the trucks into fright. There are gnomes in them, and that's it. Now, storyline wise, This is terrible. Keeping gnomes at an abandoned mine. Why? Why is that a thing? Overall, the plot just comes across very messy. But again, visuals wise, I have to say this is really impressive. The shots of the branch line towards and past the haunted mine, really rather spooky with the mist, the leafless trees. It gives me Haunted Henry vibes. The mine itself is very well done, all shrouded in darkness and mist, and the visual of it sinking is one of the best practical effects I think I've seen in Thomas past the classic era. Overall, this feels like a classic Spooky Thomas episode. The visuals wise, it's up there. But storyline wise, really makes this a weak one for me, and the music just doesn't sit right. It's too upbeat, I feel, for the tone of the episode, so sadly, this one was a little bit of a letdown. Well, this is further than I've ever gone past before Season 5, and we're here with Halloween from Season 8, and, well, yeah. Overall, honestly, it's a pretty meh plot. It's Halloween on the island again, Thomas is sent to the scrapyard again, and we clearly can't go anywhere else that's remotely scary now on the island. But this time he's with Emily. They both act all tough until running into the Iron Twins, who decide to fuck with them, and it immensely backfires. Emily and Thomas run off, a huge sheep falls on Emily, and the twins and Thomas shit themselves, running down the line away from here only to look like morons later on in the episode. Now, compared to what we had come before, this story is terrible, but I was surprised to find that there are some things I actually do quite like about this one. There was a nice use of visuals here with the fog and the way it's used, especially with the two are rolling into the yard. Wow, there's some really good camera angles here. The glowing in the distance of the smelters, they did good here. The theme playing in the background I actually quite like as well. It's a rather haunted vibe to it, and to be honest, in places it does remind me a lot of Stepney Gets Lost with the lights, the visuals, the camera angles, which I have to give them props for. But it's not Stepney Gets Lost, and unfortunately it just doesn't have that same feeling classic series did. But overall, not bad. Not bad. And so yeah, to summarise, Spooky Thomas episodes. You have the good, you have the okay, and you have the bad. But I think we can all agree that this sort of tone in this show was just fantastic, and when they did play with this tone, 9 times out of 10 it really worked. So from me, the Cheeky Engine, I just want to wish everyone a happy Halloween. I really hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know what your favourite spooky episode is down below. I'm pretty sure I know which one probably everyone's favourite is, but it would be nice to know. Maybe it's something a little bit different. But yeah, wherever you are, have a really spooky Halloween.